Howdy from Kansas and Merry Christmas. Today I'm going to show you how to make these delicious American biscuits.
So let's get started making our American biscuits. Since it is a pastry, it's important that the butter does not melt until the pastry goes in the oven, so it helps to have your equipment chilled. So I have my bowl in the refrigerator to chill, and I'm going to get that out now. And my butter is chilled as well. Okay, for this recipe, we will be needing 475 milliliters, or 2 cups, of all-purpose flour, 2 tablespoons, or 30 milliliters, of baking powder, 1 scant tablespoon of sugar that's a little less than 15 milliliters, 1 teaspoon, or 5 milliliters, salt, 5 tablespoons, or 75 milliliters, of cold butter, 1 cup, or 240 milliliters, of whole milk, and finally some extra flour for dusting the surface we'll be kneading the dough on. First, we'll want to preheat our oven to, for us it's 425 degrees, for you 215 degrees Celsius. Okay, in a large bowl, and my bowl has been in the refrigerator so it's chilled to keep everything cold, we will want to add our flour, our baking powder, sugar, and salt. Now, if you have a food processor, you can use that to cut in the butter, but I don't. So instead, I use a pastry blender. So we add our butter, cold butter, and cut it in with the pastry blender. This allows the butter to form air pockets to make the biscuits fluffy. You'll know the butter is cut into the proper consistency when it resembles coarse crumbs. You want crumbs of butter so it won't be completely mixed. It's a little lumpy, and that's okay. You want it a little lumpy. So then we add our milk to the bowl. All of the milk. And use a fork to stir in the cold milk. Now, when working with pastry, of course, it's important to keep your dough cold. So what I like to do is put some ice packs from the freezer or a bag of ice on the countertop and just chill the countertop so that when we start working the dough will stay cool and the butter doesn't melt. Remember, you don't want the butter to melt until it goes in the oven. Do not let the butter melt. Now it's been about 5 minutes, so the counter is nice and cold here. So you will want to take some flour and just dust your counter space here, dust your workspace. And then turn out your dough. It's sticky. So this will help not stick. We want to pat the dough down until it's about an inch thick. What is that? 3.5 centimeters. And then we fold the dough over, pat it down again, about the same thickness, and fold it one more time. This gives layers in the dough, so when the biscuit pulls apart, it pulls apart into different layers. So then we take our dough and let it rest. Cover with a clean towel and let it rest for about 30 minutes. Okay, so 30 minutes have passed with our dough rising on the counter. We'll want to prepare our baking sheet. If you have a pan coating, you can spray that on the pan to grease the pan. Or if you don't have this in Sweden, I don't know, you can use some butter and butter the pan. And that works too. Just get it nice and covered. Either butter or spray, you don't have to use both. Just okay. So we'll uncover our dough. And we want to pat this down. A little flour will keep your hands from sticking. That looks about right. So now we'll cut out our biscuits. If you have a biscuit cutter or a cookie cutter, that works best. If you don't have a round cutter, you can use a glass, like so. It doesn't work as well, but you can use it if you don't have a cutter, but a cutter is best. Now, when we cut out our biscuits, you want to press straight down. No twisting. Do not twist. It will pinch the edges of the dough and keep the biscuit from rising. So dip your cutter in a little flour and press straight down. Now you can use a spatula, a little flour underneath, And lift your biscuits. And set them on the pan. Now we put our biscuits in the oven. And we will bake these biscuits for about 10 or 15 minutes. There's my alarm. It's been 10 minutes. I'm going to check them in the oven to see if they're golden brown. Not quite yet, so I'll give them about another 5 minutes. Okay, our biscuits are ready. I actually might have got them a little bit done. The golden brown, these are more brown than golden, so maybe a little bit less brown than this. And just set them on a rack or trivet to cool off. So one of the things that characterizes a good biscuit is flakiness. You can pull it apart. It says hot and steaming.